The family, considered the smallest unit in a society, but the most powerful.
Nigeria's number one for talk, 99.3 Nigeria Info. And we are at a family clinic right now. Usually at a family clinic, what happens here?
We usually, there's usually one person in the clinic where we help that individual find a solution to whatever situation they're in.
Yeah.
And so more or less they are the patient and we try to help them feel better. Most times give clarity as to, whatever ambiguous situation that they are going through. Sometimes it just takes one or two people helping you clarify or helping you see one or two, clearing the cobwebs, helping you see clearer and helping you make a better decision.
That's right, or removing the veil
from your eyes.
And Lagos plays a major role because Lagos are the advisors. And we also have a rule here that people do not judge people, no matter what the story is. You don't judge. We're here for solutions, so we don't do that. So in the past couple of weeks, we've received tons of emails and messages for different issues. And the truth is, before we bring these stories on the radio, we always want to do our investigation, ask the necessary questions so that we don't come on air and then someone is asking, but why is this and all that? Yeah, usually that's what we do.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of getting back to a number of people who had sent in email to ascertain what exactly the issue is, to be sure that someone is not just making some story up or telling a story from a perspective that favors them. Because if for us to have a solution, you've got to be very objective. You have to bring the story the way it is so that we can help out. Don't hide out anything. So when the process of doing that, and if you had sent an email and we have not addressed it, that is the reason. So in the meantime, for those who have been asking how can they be a part of, if you want to send an email and you want it to be treated in the family clinic, the email address hasn't changed.
Yes, family talk with the Tekes at gmail.com. Family talk with the Tekes at gmail.com. And when you send your story, remember to also include your number so that we can call you to make further investigation.
Today on the show, we decided to join in the campaign, join in the talk of one of the biggest conversation that has been a major thing. And incidentally, it is also the period that, the UN is asking for that activism against gender-based violence. So that will be our focus today. We'll talk about gender-based violence. We'll also have a guest who has worked with several victims, also has been at the forefront of ensuring that Nigeria wins the war against gender-based violence right here on the show.
That's right. So during COVID-19 or during the lockdown, as we were experiencing coronavirus, some other homes were experiencing what we call the shadow pandemic. As the world battles with the COVID-19 pandemic, emerging evidences has also indicated a sharp rise in gender-based violence, especially against women and young girls. Now, the rise of this issue, that is the gender-based violence in Nigeria during the COVID-19 crisis, have life-threatening consequences for women and girls and a profound impact on their opportunities and life trajectory.
That's right. These impacts, of course, will have consequences that will, ripple across communities, if you like, and the whole country as Nigeria begins to also recover from the detrimental economic and health impacts of the crisis. That's talking about the pandemic, as it were.
Now, according to the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, UNFPA, report of 2020, the incidence of gender-based violence, GBV, is growing astronomically. With the activities of the insurgency in the northeast, from forced and early marriages to the physical, mental, or sexual assault on a woman, nearly 3 in 10 Nigerian women have experienced physical violence by age 15.
That's right. Let's also note that Nigeria has recorded some positives, if you like, positive developments during the 2020 reporting period. And these include efforts by the Nigerian Governors Forum, I know, to declare a state of emergency on gender-based violence. I remember that happened.
Yeah, the inauguration of the Inter-Ministerial Gender-Based Violence Management Committee, right?
Yeah.
The Senate approval of the Sexual Harassment Bill in furtherance of the legislative agenda to protect women's rights and at a regional level.
That's right. Statement by the ECOWAS Commission also is something to take note of, calling for urgent action to address the gender-based violence and protect the rights of children. That's yet another major voice, lending a voice to the fight against gender-based violence.
Now, in June, the National Human Rights Commission, I beg your pardon, in Nigeria Police, and the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, that is NAPTIP, signed an agreement of formally joining forces to combat GBV, that is gender-based violence. It is expected that these developments present opportunities to further the prevention and response to GBV in Nigeria.
I totally agree. But how have these so-called achievements, if you like, translated into the reduction of gender-based violence incidences in Nigeria?
Now, it was reported that during the pandemic, especially during the lockdown period, there were high cases of gender-based violence. There were high cases of women especially being abused domestically, violently, physically in their homes during that period.
That's right.
And I know that, of course, these responses, these policies are being put in place, but how well has it been implemented, especially in homes today?
For some of these fights and these issues, there's a lot of lip service paying to some of these issues. And that's why this conversation is quite important, because most people, there's a lot of talk about it, but how much is actually being done about this situation or about this gender-based violence or fighting gender-based violence. And like you mentioned, that's right. During the pandemic or the lockdown specifically, people were meant to be at home more. So it's more or less like if you're a victim of any gender-based violence, especially from the home or wherever, trust me, you are more or less locked with your captor. It's more or less you can't go anywhere anyway. There's a legal there is there's
a law
not to let you go out.
Mm.
So the cases, that's why that report in 2020 showed that the cases increased, and it was so much more than it used to be. Well, this is a good point for us to get this conversation on board as we introduce our guest on the show.
Our guest on the show today is a lawyer and a child and women's rights advocate. She's also the project lead Unsub Africa. She's a person of Khadijah Mohammed Awwal. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? You're looking well.
Thank you. I'm fine, thank you.
All right, it's good to have you here.
All right, let's hit the ground running. So we just read out the statistics and the report of gender-based violence in Nigeria. We also talked about the fact that, during the pandemic, when COVID happened, from the beginning in 2020, there were more cases reported as a result of the fact that people were locked at home. So victims were more or less, you're more or less locked with
perpetrator,
the perpetrator of this act. But let's start from here. From your point of view, what is your assessment of gender-based violence in Nigeria? Are we making any significant progress?
I believe when it comes to creating awareness, that is where we're making progress. But the actual work that I feel I can say, walking the talk, we're still not there yet. Well, for the talk, I feel we're doing considerably well. We're creating awareness, which is good, which is a good thing on its own.
Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of talk that it's not just women who experience gender-based violence, that men also experience gender-based violence. So if we were to put them side by side now, what would you say are the statistics when it comes to the male who are being affected by gender-based violence and the women as well?
No, I think statistically speaking, this thing is not even close. The gender-based violence against women, it's still very much higher than that against men. But that doesn't mean this doesn't happen. But it's statistically it's quite low. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that men don't report as often as women do, because they see it as something of a stigma on their own.
True.
So that could be a contributory factor to why the statistics is still low.
Okay.
All right. Well, when Andrea was introducing you, I remember she mentioned that you're the project lead of Unsub. Now, Unsub, what does that mean?
Unsub is a mobile and web platform that connects survivors of gender-based violence with support providers. We have a lot of organizations and government institutions working within the GBV response space. So it occurred to us that a lot of these organizations and institutions are doing the work, but there's lack of collaboration. We believe with that collaboration, we could achieve a lot more than if we're doing it individually as an organization or as an government institution. So we felt, okay, this is a platform that can bring everybody together and connect them to the right organization that can provide support to them.
And I think that is actually commendable, because most people who find themselves in that space, who are victims of domestic abuse, right, they do not most times have that safe space where they can report these cases to, and where people can actually help them be safe from their perpetrator. But aside away from that a bit, you mentioned something about we being sensitizing people about domestic violence, but not necessarily gender-based violence, and not necessarily doing so much when it comes to the result. But sensitization is good. Would it be nice to have that sensitization as a curriculum in schools, or as a topic, or something to bring to the curriculum in the school setting?
Yeah, that would be a very good idea. But in this country, there's this cultural, I think, restrictions or something. So we don't want a situation whereby we end up watering down this curriculum to something that is not really. But if we could try as much as possible to say it as it is, or close to what it is, without having to water it down to almost nothing, then that would be a very great idea.
Okay.
All right, guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking gender-based violence today on the Family Clinic with the Tekes. She's Andrea, and I'm Collins. We do have the project lead of Unsub Africa, in person of Khadijah Mohammed Awwal, speaking to us. She is a lawyer and a child and women rights advocate. Gender-based violence is what our focus is. So I know we'll come back to Unsub and what you're doing and how your role you're playing, and so far so good. But let's talk about survivors. Most times when something is prevalent, it gets to happen more and more. Those who have survived the experience, most times they don't get as much attention as they need, because I know for sure that survivors of gender-based violence will need medical, reproductive health services, and even psychosocial care and protection, from the legal angle. How are survivors protected by your initiative?
Oh, okay. So we consider confidentiality a very key component of our work. So we also understand that these institutions and organizations which are signed up on the platform also understand that. So we try as much as possible to protect the any information that we receive from a survivor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Right. I mean, you talked about safe space, and that for me hits strongly, because most of the people who are in that who are victims, right? They find it, like I said earlier, to find that safe space where they can be. Most of them are traumatized. They're either afraid that this person who has been perpetrating this on them would haunt them and all of that. So, on that note, how does Unsub try to make that possible for this victims?
Okay, so when a report is made on the Unsub platform, that report is confidential. We do not share that information with a third party. We have a key administrator of the platform, which is currently a government institution.
Okay.
So we believe that's the best way to go about it. That administrator would verify the information and protect the case reporter in every way possible. And then the report would be assigned to the right organization or part of the government institution that is in the best position to handle that. So to us, every report made is kept confidential.
Okay.
Even any organization that is not working on that is not privy to that information. So even organizations that are working on that, there's levels to the kind of information you would receive. And on the platform, you can also make a report anonymously.
Okay. Wow. That's beautiful to know. So we'll get to the point of how finding out if someone can actually get to report, or you take advantage of the platform. But let's talk about, you're a legal practitioner, right? And do you think that the legal punishment for perpetrators of gender-based violence is enough for the harm caused?
I think that varies with individual perspective. But I feel we could do better. But the area that we need to focus on right now is dispensation of justice. We could have penalties, but it takes long to reach there. So if we're saying the penalties are not even enough, that's a whole different conversation. But let's make sure that justice is dispensed speedily first. Then we can talk about whether the penalty is enough or not. I feel that should be the first step.
Okay. All right. So I have this question, because I know people listening right now, I am sure that one or three women right now that is listening must have found themselves in that position where they are they're victims of what we're talking about right now. And one thing I have found out as a trend is it's difficult for them to report. And it happens all the time where the people who, especially women who have found themselves, or even men as well, find it difficult to report these cases. How can we encourage a victim who's listening right now to report a case if they are victims of such gender-based violence?
I think we all need to see it as helping one another. You're not only helping yourself by reporting, you're helping the next person that perpetrator would most likely violate. So you need to see it that way. You need help, you need the support, and you also need to make that report in order to prevent another person from falling prey of that perpetrator.
Okay.
All right, well said. Our time is fast spent. We'll wrap up this conversation. I think we're also streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube for those who are sending messages right there. We'll check on your messages as you proceed. But a quick one before you go. We would like to have your parting shots and also hear from you about how can someone access this platform, the Unsub platform? How can one access it? And, just tell us a bit about that for someone who's listening right now and perhaps they have a case to report. How can they utilize that platform to help themselves?
Okay, you can go to www.unsub.africa. It's spelled UNSUB
Okay.
.africa. So when you go on the website, you can download the platform on either Google Play Store or iOS.
Okay.
So you can make a report right away. We have a form that has the categories of interventions. It has a place where you can even record a voice note, attach documents, photos, and like I said, you can make a report anonymously, and you can also report on behalf of somebody. Okay. We get a lot of people reporting on behalf of the survivors. So once the report is filed, it goes directly to the administrator of the platform, who then looks at the report and assigns it to the right institution or organization that is in the best position to handle that.
Right. I like this is actually a very brilliant innovation. Yeah, very brilliant initiative. And of course, if you are listening right now and you want to report a case on behalf of your friend or someone who is in that mix, I think that you have to download the app and do that.
Thank you so much, Awwal, for speaking with us. And do have a blessed day ahead and all the best with your role with Unsub Africa.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a nice day.
All right, yes. You too. We'll go on a break right now. Lagos, stick around. We'll be right back. gmail.com, family talk with the Tekes at gmail.com.
Just narrate the story. If you want to be anonymous, well, let us know before we put it on the air. But hey, we know that people are going through a whole lot of stuff. They found themselves in a situation where they cannot talk. I mean, they're just confused. They need direction, like Andrew said. They need clarity, enlightenment. We gather every Thursday as a family. I'm talking about millions of listeners across the city of Lagos and beyond. And with our humble selves here in the studio, we talk about how you can find a solution to whatever problem you're faced with. What that does is it helps you as a person not only to learn, to find a solution, but also you help others who are in a similar situation. And there's always someone who has been in your shoes, who has faced that thing that you're faced with and overcome. And such a person would be handy, to give you an advice on what you can do about your situation. So it's a pure family, a pure clinic, pure love, pure interest for one another, and that's what we stand for.
That's right. And today we're talking gender-based violence. And just before we went on the break, we had a guest who shed light on that subject matter and also preferring solution in that light as well. If you know someone who is experiencing that and needs help and needs that case to be reported, Unsub is there. Also, I think that there's been this narrative that gender-based violence is all victim. I mean, it's all physical.
Yeah.
It's all beating and hitting and giving the blue eye and the likes. But there are other forms of gender-based violence, and then we'll be enlightening us on that today.
That's right. So yeah, it could be physical, like you mentioned. It could also be sexual. All right. It could be emotional.
Yeah.
It could be financial or structural. There are so many. It could take different forms. So sometimes some people could be facing a form of violence, but they cannot really place what it is because they do not know what gender-based violence entailed. And then, most times, if you want to talk about the causes, one of the biggest has to do with societal perception of femininity and masculinity. It's a patriarchal world. Women are supposed to be here, men are supposed to be here. And why now you have to now, that's a woman. So some of these things have become a part of our lives over the years because society has just kind of like defined what we are and who we are and what we stand for, just like that. So but there's so many causes of this,
and also of course the different forms. But there's a particular form of that virus that we don't talk about a lot, which the one that actually deals psychologically, which is more the emotional part of being violated. Most people right now, either in relationships or marriages, are actually being violated psychologically. But they're not even aware that they're being they're being violated. They're being manipulated. So I know of a girl who happened to be a mentee back in the day. So she said something to me that she feels that she's being manipulated. She feels she's being manipulated, but she loves this guy. She wants to be with this guy. She finds herself making decisions that she does not want to make. But this guy has a way of talking her into making those decisions. And that itself is already violation.
Absolutely. So one other thing, you remember the day we talked about gaslighting and people came out to share their stories.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are experiencing such a thing, and it's violently dealing with their mental state, violently dealing with their self-worth, violently dealing with their personality and their productivity and many things about them. But because they do not have a name for it, they cannot, place it. And because it's not physical, people do not pay attention to it. It's just, he talks to you that way. He does this to you. It's not man. That's how men are. Or that's how women are. And things like that. So this topic is very important because someone out there could be facing one of the many types of gender-based violence and not even being aware of it.
I mean, and like that you mentioned that you don't necessarily have to be beating for you to be actually experiencing a violation, gender-based violence. There are other kinds as well. There's the sexual harassment. There's rape in itself. There's, of course, we've mentioned physical, beating, malhandling, maltreatment, and all of that. All of these are forms of gender-based violence.
Absolutely. It could be economical. Someone, naturally, because you're female, or you're setting gender, you're paid less, or you're giving less attention.
Yeah.
Or especially with the finances. That in itself, it's a kind of
violation,
if you like, against you because you are setting gender. All right, and that is very common. It's a general perception.
Yeah.
We ever get to a place, what can this woman do? She's a woman and you can't do. They just assume. But we know that there are exceptions. There are people who, irrespective of their gender, would deliver better. Even as a female. Well, we'd like to hear from Lagos. If you think that you've had such an experience, or what you think could be the solution to this increasing number of gender-based violence cases that we report. And there's also some statistics here that was released state by state, talking about the number of cases reported of gender-based violence, in different states in all the geopolitical zones. Incidentally, Eko was like one of the top places. Lagos was kind of like leading the number of cases reported. I don't know if that's a good result, a good report, or
a bad one. Well, in the northeast, that's Adamawa, Bauchi, Borno, Gombe. March and April, Adamawa experienced 16 cases in March and 20 cases in April.
Reported.
Also, let's see, for Bauchi, in March, 9 cases. In April, 30 cases. Let's move to northwest. In Kaduna, in March, 6 cases. In April, 23 cases. Katsina, 23 cases in March, and April, 33 cases. Let's move to North Central. Benue had 30 cases reported in March and 52 cases reported in April. The FCT had 5 in March and 31 in April. Wow. Let's see. Nasarawa had 5 in March and 20 in April. In the southeast, Abia had 25 in March and 46 in April. Anambra received, let's say, a number of 3 cases in March and 22 in April. Let's move to Southwest. Ekiti had 25 in March and 51 in April. Lagos had 37 in March and 185 in April, which is made it the highest report.
I mean, those are number of cases that were reported. And we know that if you look at the ratio of cases reported against those that are not reported, it's so wide. There's a wide gap.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of cases not reported. So even with the fact that it's underreported, you can still see that there are number of cases reported. And by the way, this is based on this report is based on during the COVID-19 period and the lockdown, and specifically from ministries, state and federal ministries of women affairs, as it were. But let's take some calls. The numbers are jamming right now. We'll take a number of calls and hear from you with your personal experience, what you think can be done, and if you feel that is a concern, gender-based violence is a concern, in our society today, in our families today. Let's hear. The numbers are
0700 993 993 993. The female only line 01 465 7190. Hello.
Hello, Andrea and Colin.
Hi. Good morning.
How are you today? Good morning.
We're
doing great.
Yes, I like the topic, but I'm going to look at it from another angle because I felt violated many years ago when I was pregnant, and I mean when my mother was around. She was alive then, and she kept telling me, "Don't cry, don't cry. Other people have done it. Other girls." She will now mention friends, relatives, people that I'm older than, but they did it and they didn't cry. So it's not. So as she was saying that, I didn't quite understand why that until Labor Day came. My goodness. It was so painful. I cried. I was like, I needed to touch the iron of the bed in Lutz to make sure that I got this, in the room.
Yeah.
So by the time I had the baby, and she came. I warned her. I said, please don't do this to any of my younger ones. This idea of don't cry. Imagine if I didn't let out that. So I feel that is a form of gender-based violence.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, don't cry. It brings you down. It makes you less of a woman and things like that.
Yeah.
No.
That's right.
Women need to, if you have to show emotion, you're a human being.
Yes.
That's right.
And it's your right to.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for
so
sharing
much.
that.
Very valid point.
Absolutely.
Because there's that tendency. It's not just mothers, nurses too.
Yeah,
Please,
absolutely.
nurses, we love you for the work you do, but please, why are you always harsh? Calm down. Why are you always making it look like it's not a big deal? I don't know if it's part of your training to make people feel like, well, it's not a big deal. But if somebody says it's a big deal to him, let it be a big deal.
It's their right to express themselves.
Is it your body?
And then when you stop them from expressing their rights, you are violating them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another form I didn't mention was forced abortion.
Yeah.
Or forced what's it called? Of course, female genital mutilation, of course, is part of it. Forced sterilization and the rest. All those are gender-based violence.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a calling.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. You see, when I gave birth to my last born, I was totally confused. Do you know the reason why?
Why?
Okay. What really happened is that when the doctor and the nurse now look at me, because I give the first birth to the 1, 2, 3, 4. The doctor is my friend, my good friend.
Okay.
So he now call me, Eze, can you carry this load? Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can. We're here with you.
So when they call me, I say, why did you say so? He say, come to my office, let me talk to you. He say, you have given birth to 4 children now. Can you carry the load? I said, no. So I didn't understand until when he now opened up to me. And I was like, okay, is that what you are telling me? Yes. Yeah. He said, okay. He said he will do one thing to help me. And he discussed it with me. And
hello?
All right. Do call us back if you can. 0700 993 993 993. We're talking gender-based violence. Have you had any experience of any sort, either directly or indirectly, something that you witnessed or not? And they're talking about the rise of this, especially took prominence. A lot of people had reported cases. We just even give out the statistics as to the amount of people or amount of cases that were reported here in Lagos. Over 100 cases were reported here in Lagos. So what are your sentiments? What do you think about this conversation, and something that we need to keep talking about?
That's right. And what's your understanding of gender-based violence? Do you know what that means? What's your own definition as a person, to you as a person? What do you understand by that? It's a question we also need to ask, because if you do not understand it, you may not even know whatever it is you're experiencing could be part of it, or you might be perpetrating it without necessarily knowing, because you do not know what it is.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, please.
Very interesting topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ikenna is my name.
Welcome,
Ikenna.
Ikenna.
Yes, and I must make a point, and the point I must make is that gender-based violence. I didn't start the program from the beginning, so I wouldn't have gotten the statistics as to which one is more. Is it the one experienced by women or the one experienced by men? But I want to believe, just by my own calculation and what I know, and of course I know women experience more gender-based violence as opposed to men.
Yes, right.
And I would attribute that to a very large extent to the society we find ourselves, where from the word go, a woman is made to believe that she's less a human to start with, and the man is, of course, of a superior position. Okay, so, but I think to settle this issue, greater attention should be paid to, the education of the girl child. The girl child needs to be encouraged to know that first she's a human being even before becoming a female or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that should be one angle to look at it from. Another angle to look at this from, there is also the need to create this economic balance between the men and the women. So you empower the girl child after going to school, get a very good job, and rise in your case. As you do that, you realize that all this whole gender violence, that what I'm talking about physical violence and even mental violence, it would reduce to a very large extent. So, and I think it's very important the society begins to look at it from that angle. I saw the statistics you read out concerning where we have it more. In Lagos, it's understandable because we have more educated people in Lagos and people report more. True. So in other places, like the southeast and even the northwest and the other regions you talked about, it's possible it's even higher in those places, but it's highly underreported.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with you. Thank you for your contribution. We appreciate it. Made a lot of sense.
That's right.
And yes, he laid emphasis on, having to. Oh, okay. Hello.
Get involved in the discussion.
Go ahead.
It isn't only the girl child that needs to be educated. The man child needs to be educated as well.
Yeah.
And many of us women are actually perpetrating this problem. Because if a woman doesn't have a male child, she's worried. She's running up and down. And then when the male child comes, you make him a king in the house. He doesn't have any training. You don't tell him how to, care for other people and so on. So they grow up and feel they are kings of the manor. So we women need to train our children, whether male or female, in the proper way to relate in the community and be a part of the world that they belong to.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Georgia from Magodo.
Thank you,
Georgia.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're going to make your point from the last caller.
Yes, he mentioned educating the girl child, and he laid emphasis on that. I agree with that to a large extent, because as much as we want to say, educate the boy child too and let him understand, because at the end of the day, they're going to coexist in the same place.
That's right.
But over the years, there has to be a lot of unlearning and relearning.
That's right.
So it's just like when something has been encrypted in your subconscious, and then you're acting out what has been encrypted without even you knowing it, because it has been in your subconscious.
Yeah.
So that has to be done.
Yeah.
To unlearn what has been learned.
That's right.
And then learn something else.
That's right.
So that in itself is very important. I don't want to talk too much about this so that I don't sound being biased or not. But I think emphasis has to be made in that education, having to relearn and unlearn and relearn.
Especially on with the girl child. The females more.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I mean, if you look at the cases, society itself has pushed us to the place where, like the last two callers have said, where you already think that as a man you're already at a position where you are superior. Yeah. That I know that a bit that is changing. Yeah. In most places, but a lot of Nigerians still have that kind of mindset, especially in the rural areas. Yeah. They don't want to hear anything like unlearning or relearning. As far as they're concerned, is civilization. You want to come and affect our culture. That's where culture starts coming, and you hear things like that. So I totally agree. There's a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
Because anything that's affecting human beings and the people, their productivity to live to their full potential, it's our own undoing.
Absolutely.
If we do not deal with it, we have a society that is, we have a list of broken people moving around. People are broken, one way or the other.
So, I wanted to mention that part. about the women, how that it is important for them having to unlearn and relearn. And that's really because of that fact of them being less, that part of them being, oh, you're lesser. A man has to rule over you. A man has to, that has been encrypted in their subconscious. And so it becomes difficult for them to, even when they're being battered, even when they're being manipulated, even when they're being, forced not to become who they want to become, they stay there because in their subconscious it has been encrypted there, and so they're acting on what they have been exactly, and so that has to be removed.
That's right.
That has to be worked on.
I also equally agree that there's work on the boy child too, especially in the area of understanding that that human beings deserve equal rights, and understanding that you do not necessarily have any special advantage by the truth
of your gender,
nature itself, because of a gender. You just have a peculiar role, which is different, understanding that they have a role to play, as it were, because the truth is they're going to coexist at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I think that the new generation parents are becoming wise enough to understand these things. I believe so. And they're training their children in that light as well, to unlearn what they learned, right? Changing the narrative from their own generation. That's what I think.
That's why we go on a break. When we come back, we'll play just a minute to wrap this up, and also take your messages on Facebook and on WhatsApp as we wrap up our family clinic today. Don't go away. We're just getting started.